You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time for the first Hot Options Report for the week for Monday, September 22nd. Hope your trading week is off to a good start. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging on all of our great options content. Make sure you subscribe to the full network wherever you're getting this podcast. And, of course, if you're ready to pull the trigger, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more, including an awesome pro Q&A coming up tomorrow with our good buddy Dr. VIX, where we break down some of the behind-the-scenes data on how and whether you should be trading unusual options activity. Should be fascinating. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to get more. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, everybody, let's get down to business for today's Hot Options Report. Starting, as always, in VIX Land. Was it a banger day in VIX Land? The answer, once again, kind of surprisingly, is no. Only 425,000 contracts on the tape. That's less than half of its ADV, which is 906,000 contracts. I said last week that's a lot of paper to maintain, and VIX having a hard time maintaining it today. VIX cash closing just a tick above the 16 handle, 1610 to be precise out there today. And the hot option out there in VIX Land, 42, almost 43,000 of the November 50, the 50 calls, going up for an average price of nearly 50 cents. No 50s for 50 cents? You like those, listeners? Or are you sold to you? As we keep on rolling out to SPY Land, SPY putting up pretty much an ADV's worth of paper today. SPY averaging about 7.9 million contracts and putting up about 7.9 million contracts today as well. So pretty much sliding right in there. The hot option out there on a pretty much average day in SPY Land, at least for right now, 390,000 of the 666 calls, the number of the beast calls, going up for an average price of 46 cents. SPY going out today, 666.84. So you bought those for around that average price and rode them into the close. Not a bad day for you, all things considered, out there in SPY Land. As we keep on rolling out to the S, was it a hot day in the S? The answer also yes. Right around 4.25 million contracts going up against an ADV of about 4.05 million. So a decently active day out there. And the hot option on a decently active day in the S, 201,000 of the 6,700s. That's what we're coming down to now, listeners. 6,700 strike calls going up in the SPX. The S closing a little bit shy of that strike today, listeners. 66.93 3/4. We did get within spitting distance, though. Got to about 66.98, almost 66.99 out there, listeners. And those 6,700s, average price of $1.06. So you know the deal. Unfortunately, where we went out today, if you rode them into the close, not exactly a winner chicken dinner for you, but interesting to see that 6,700 strike starting to light up our tape. Probably not the last time We're going to be talking about that strike as we keep on rolling out to small caps. Was it a hot day in small caps? The answer was it was decent. 1.3 million contracts. The ADV closing in on 1.6 million. Remember that number a little bit inflated by some of that ex-div paper we saw going up last week. The hot option out there in small caps, 109,000 of the 244 calls expiring today. Average price on those is 17 cents. IWM going out 244.39. So if you rode those into the close, not a bad day for you out there, listeners, as we keep on rolling out to the Qs. Was it a decent day out there in the Qs? The answer was yeah, it was pretty active out there. 4.75 million contracts changing hands in the Qs today. That's against an ADV of about 4.15 million. So pretty spicy out there, all things considered. And the hot option out there, about 263,000 of the par puts, the 600 puts expiring today, listeners. The Qs going out today a little bit north of 602, 602.20. Although we did drift below it right around the open today, listeners. 597.72 was the low today. So maybe that makes the average price of around 49 cents for these par puts a little bit more palatable out there for you as we keep on rolling out to the single names. Was it a hot day in single name land? The answer was it was decent. Nearly 600,000 contracts is what it cost you to break into the top 10. 595 to be precise. That gets us to our old pal Palantir. Closing today, 179 and a third, off about $3 on the day, listeners. So giving back a little bit to the market gods out there today. And the hot option, 35,000 of the 185 calls expiring. When else on Friday, listeners? 185 may seem like a distant strike, and it is, but they got to 182 and a quarter today. So we're within spitting distance of it today. Average price for these about $2 exactly. So you know the drill. 187 is your huckleberry by the end of the week, listeners. As we keep on rolling to number 9, it's our old pal Oracle. Closing today, 328.15. Popping hard again today, up another 6 1/3%, 19.5 bucks out there. So Oracle getting back a lot of what it lost over the past couple of weeks after that big explosion to the upside post earnings, putting up 625,000 contracts today. The hot option out there, 45,000 of the 320s. That's an in the money strike, a little over $8 in the money, which probably explains this price of about $8. Can we hang out here or above by the end of the week? Looks like a lot of flow in Oracle saying a resounding yes. We'll keep an eye on Oracle, of course, as we keep on rolling to number 8. It's our old pal Snap. You don't see them in our top 10 too often. Closing today, $8.53, rallying about 4.5% out there today, putting up 649,000 contracts. The hot option out there in Snap today, it's the 9s, 53,000 of the 9s. Expiring at the end of this week. Average price for these about 30 cents. Can Snap threaten $9.30? Well, if you say no, it got there today pretty much, 9.28 before retreating back down to earth out there. So that probably makes that 30-cent price level seem maybe a little bit more palatable to some of you out there, or maybe some of you are saying sold to you out there. Snap can't get there by the end of the week. We will keep an eye on Snap as we keep on rolling to number 7. It's our old pal AMD, listeners. A lot of action in the chip zone today. AMD popping hard, 159.79, up about almost $2.5 or about 1.5%. So another upside day for AMD, putting up 675,000 contracts today. The hot option out there, 67,000 of the 165 calls. Average price for these about $1.76. So not exactly giving these bad boys away. Maybe you say that's a screaming sale, but before you say that, the high today was 162.68. So 165 is looking a lot more relevant earlier in the session than perhaps they are now. As we keep on rolling to number 6, it's our old pal, good old Intel. 28.76 at where it closed today, actually giving up about 80 odd cents, or about 2.75% to the market gods out there today, listeners. And the hot option out there in Intel today, listeners, 44, almost 45,000 of the 30 calls expiring this Friday. 30? That may seem wild, but may not surprise you also to hear that they did get there today. Got up to $30.10. So Maybe that makes the 56 cents average price for these 30 calls a little bit more palatable. Can we get back there by the end of this week, listeners? That's something we'll keep an eye on as we keep on rolling out to number 5. It's the Amazonians, 227.63, giving up nearly $4 or about 1 2/3% today, putting up 854,000 contracts out there in Amazon land today, listeners. And it was a hot day in Amazon with a lot of flex changing hands out there, listeners. If we jump past the flex, though, go out to the contracts that you folks can trade out there, it was 40,000 of the 230 calls expiring this Friday, listeners, taking the top spot. Average price of about $2.50. And go figure, Amazon got up to 230.56 today. So again, before you jump out of your screen and say sold to you, maybe consider a little bit of the range that it had out there today. As we keep on rolling out to number 4. Speaking of range, there's a few names that have as wide of a range out there as our old pal Open. Closing today, $8.38, giving up nearly $1.20 or about 12.5%. Had a range today of 945 to the upside, 832 to the downside. So yet another wild day, another wild range in Open, listeners, putting up 1.12 million contracts. So a banger day in Open from a volume perspective. The hot option out there, once again, it's our old pal, the 10s, 172,000 of the 10s changing hands today. Average price of 35 cents, listeners. Those seem kind of wild. Then again, if it was any other name than Open, you'd say it's a screaming sold to you, but Open can be back there tomorrow. Absolutely wild out there, listen. I have to feel if you like those, you can probably get a better price on those on the Open tomorrow. So that's at least the silver lining on these. But Open, 1.12 million contracts, and the number 4 spot as we keep on rolling to number 3. Our old pal Tesla getting kicked to number 3. A hot day out there in Tesla today as well, rallying nearly 2%, closing 434.21. So another strong upside day, putting up 2.2 million contracts out there, listeners. So pretty active day. And the hot option out there, 126,000 of the 450s expiring this Friday. Once again, you might say sold to you, but we did get up to nearly 445 today, 444.98. So just bear that in mind as you hear some of these average prices rolling out to you, listeners. And what could kick Tesla out of its perpetual number 2 spot, listeners, all the way down to the number 3 spot today, listeners? It's our old pal, the fruit company, of course, after being a very reliable buy the rumor, sell the fact name over the last few weeks after the announcement of its most recent iPhone. Apparently, folks are lining up for it again, old school lines for the iPhone. So the market liking what they're seeing out there. Popping Apple over $10.50 today, $10.58, 4.3%, closing $256.08. My goodness, that's within spitting distance of its pretty much all-time high of $260.09. So wild stuff out there in the fruit company, listeners. And what was the hot option on a very hot day? 2.5 million contracts changing hands in Apple. It was 175,000 of the 255s. Average price for these, $242. And again, before you scream, sold to you, good sir, they got up as high today as $256.64 in Apple today. So just bear that in mind out there. Those were $1.64 in the money. Maybe that makes that $242. Make a little bit more sense to you as we keep on rolling out to good old Nvidia. Closing today, $183.61, up about $7 exactly, or nearly 4%. Once again on the news that Nvidia is spending a lot of money. $100 billion with OpenAI, somewhere along those lines. Usually that's going to send the stock spinning downwards, but not in Nvidia land. Second time in about a week where they've spent a lot of money and the stock has rallied, listeners, putting up 4.49 million contracts. One of the more active days we've seen in Nvidia in a little while. And what was the hot option on a hot day in Nvidia, listeners? 413,000 of the 185s. Average price for these right around 2.25. Nvidia got as high as 184.55 today. So again, maybe that makes that about 2.25 a little bit more palatable to you. All right, that's going to do it for the hot options report for Monday, September 22nd. Remember, join us throughout the rest of the week for our usual array of content. Usually 3 shows hitting you a day. on the network. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to join us for those awesome pro Q&A sessions, check out Options Oddities, where we talk a whole mess of unusual options activity and put on some wild trades while we're at it. Early access to shows, exclusives, giveaways, live streams. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more about that. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for another episode of the Hot Options Report. Oh yeah, and stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.